afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting Propagandacast from the host, Imperial Dane, featuring today a Monday Novice fight. Yes, indeed, the Monday Novice fight. This is going to be a bit on the higher end of noviceness. We're looking about level 10 for both players, though I might be wrong a bit. So obviously, that's sort of the high end of novice play. They're largely competent, but there's still some errors in understanding of the game and some parts of tactical cognition which could cause some issues. Of course, we'll be looking at that. So hopefully, you know, there will be less crying and less of people describing it as a disaster with, "Oh no, you made my cat go blind. Mr. Whiskers is blinded." So less of that, more of, interesting points, Imperial Dane. And some peculiar play from the players, but nonetheless, my cat is still blind, but my other cat isn't. And we are seeing a Commonwealth, in fact, versus the Panzer Elite. Also something people have been requesting. Of course, problem is, partly, with not showing regularly, is I don't really can't find really any Panzer Elite or Brit plays for the larger part. And of course, the question is, those, again, are not necessarily always interesting, so it's a bit of a tricky thing. I do try to sort of want something more varied than just Wehrmacht versus Americans, but it's largely what there is, and it's also largely what has some entertainment at the moment. Anyways, the Panzer Elite fighting for the 10th SS Panzer Division Hohenstaufen, named after some dynasty of, I believe it was, Austrian kings, versus the Commonwealth fighting for the, 11th Armoured, one of the few divisions that actually used Cromwell tanks as the main tanks as well, as the Cromwell was actually largely used as a reconnaissance tank because, well, it was pretty damn fast. And for a reconnaissance tank, it was actually also pretty well equipped and well armoured. But we are seeing a pretty aggressive move here with the British player. We're seeing the fuel secured up here. Bit unusual on sort of Langres. Let's just briefly pause and sort of point things out. I mean, on Langres, you usually see the Brits tending to go towards here, the Bocans providing a sort of nice barrier, and then securing this ammunition, then going sort of heavy on infantry. In this case, though, Mr. Madiq actually goes for the right-hand fuel point, so obviously he's figuring something with teching up. Also note, he's actually getting a lieutenant first out there before moving, and he's using the lieutenant to sort of secure what he considers more safe territory. Nice move there. 2 Schwimmagen start out for Mr. Theretribution, and a few Panzergrenadiers so far. 3rd squad on the way. Obviously, Mr. Theretribution hoping to seize as much territory away from the British player initially. Good move there. Recce section taking up position in the house, constantly hoping to harass the Panzergrenadiers. Advancing out in the open. They might want to stick to the light cover here. Advancing past the hedgerows and the, fences, and that way getting a bit of harder to hit business. Schwimmagnier coming under fire from Lieutenant Jones. 2 Panzergrenadier squads on the move, and we are seeing a pretty swift Kampfgruppe company going up for Mr. Theretribution. Not necessarily a bad idea. Another infantry section out for Madiq94 and the 11th Armoured. Not really doing much, are we, lads? No, sir. Just standing about here, watching for Jerry's. Infantry section moving westwards, more specifically the Recce section. The more mobile section, Left 10 moving up here. And there we go, another bit of a Sten gun firing there on the Schwimmagen. The Sten gun not really being awfully popular with British troops because it had a rather high tendency of not really working at all. Of course, some worked quite nicely, and of course it had the sort of fun fact they could actually be used with German ammunition, so generally they were lacking. Oh, Madiq, pay attention! In this case, Madiq here got way too aggressive with his lieutenant, and looks like, no, the lieutenant actually makes it out of there. Impressive. That was quite lucky. Pulls off a Forrest Gump, despite Forrest Gump not being British. Impressive. But another infantry section out on Madiq now, of course, moving about infantry sections without lieutenants to support them. I mean, as soon as he got an infantry section, I would have recommended he actually retrieve the lieutenant and had them moving about to support them. You know, buffing them strength-wise, but also, you know, movement-wise, since British squads to a certain extent and normally had some problems with a lack of NCOs and rather were dependent on lieutenants to keep the whole thing going. 2 Panzergrenadier squads will go for the freeze here versus an infantry section in a house. Not a good position for the Panzer Elite. And why is that? Usually as the Panzer Elite, you do not want to be caught in a drawn out fight like this, for example, versus a full infantry section in a house with you in only light cover. I mean, in this case, I mean, the British troops held up quite nicely. And we are now seeing an infantry half-track out. They like to Schützenpanzerwagen, recon half-track more specific, in a sense. Or some might have been handed out to regular panzergrenadier units. A bit smaller. Not as many variants, but still quite nasty. And of course right here, suppressing the Brits. And of course you should never sort of stand out in front of an infantry half-track in the open, because it can suppress and it can do damage. We're seeing panzergrenadiers here flanking around against the infantry section. A nice maneuvering from the panzergrenadiers. There's just a slight problem. They're only one squad, still not necessarily the best sort of unit composition, or for that matter, unit strength. So that could actually backfire Mr. Retribution right there. Other force moving towards the center. Mortar half-track out. Mr. Retribution going rather heavy on those parts. Interestingly enough, casualty station up for him. We are also seeing the field support truck up, and of course in that sense that is where Mr. Retribution might be making a light mistake. He's got no anti-tank really, perhaps besides a Panzerschreck, and that can be a bit dubious against Stuarts. At least it's a bit more vulnerable. So that is something to consider. On the other hand, of course, a mortar half-track to bombard the British base, and of course here's a slight problem for Madiq. And there we go, he lost the Panzergrenadier squad. In fact, nicely done there for Madiq, less good for Mr. Retribution, who lost the Panzergrenadier squad with Gewehr 43s. Mortar half-track now, though, bombarding the British forward positions. Of course, that is one of the dangers of doing it like this, and of course, in this case, Mr. Retribution taking nice advantage of it, though again, exposed to any Commonwealth armor at the moment, although the lieutenant is currently dead. Infantry sections going down. In a nice note, the lieutenant is actually still alive, impressively enough. Infantry section now advancing out in the open again. Careful with this. In this case, the Panzergrenadier suppressed the infantry section, though the half-track adds in with the machine gun and pins them completely. Captain out now, Captain Wellington. Now they just need a Stuart out, and they might have a chance because, again, currently, Mr. Retribution has nothing to actually stop armor. And a Stuart light tank at the moment could do very, very nasty things. Casualty station getting bombarded. Nice prioritization, of course, from Madiq. And getting offensive veterancy so fast. I'm not entirely sure if it actually benefits that much. And usually might recommend actually getting offensive veterancy for a mortar half-track, since that would actually make it more survivable. Also plenty of munitions. And note, he's actually gone for tank destroyer doctrine, so he can with the Schwimmwagens lay down mines. And he could consider that. That would actually make it very difficult for the British player to advance if say, something happens, like, say, a Stuart light tank. Which happens right now. My goodness. Rolling out. And that's going to be a cancelled round, or at least an attempt at one, I think. And there we go, complete chaos for Mr. Retribution. He is quite unprepared. Absolutely great mistake. One of the fun things you should always prepare for when playing against the British is armor. More specifically, the Stuart light tank. And the Stuart light tank is, to a large extent, quite vital for the British. And of course, in that sense, Mr. Retribution pretty much made a blunder like no other here. Half-tracks in problem, Schwimmwagen down. Schwimmwagen down, in fact, I mean. Half-tracks in problem, mortar half-track is safely back, but now he needs Panzerschrecks. He's upgrading, obviously. But one is not going to stop a Stuart, and the cancel round could actually do terrible damage there. Infantry half-track going to go down. More offensive veterancy for the mortar half-track. Captain in trouble. Captain Wellington, no. Oh, he managed to escape the Panzergrenadiers. Stuart pulls back. And certainly also used for reconnaissance and infantry support, but the British round actually went beyond that of using light tanks and actually just used rather larger tanks that were also considerably fast. Which they actually had quite a success with, since of course it also meant that reconnaissance troops had, well, some considerably heavier armour than most other reconnaissance units, which could largely rely only on light tanks or armoured cars. So there's something there actually. Armoured car out. Panzerschreck ready. Down to one man escaping there. Madiq should be careful. Reinforcing, regrouping, healing next to the casualty station. He actually rebuilt it, I think. Not a bad idea. Advancing out for the Commonwealth. For King George. Stuart here getting a bit aggressive. Be careful though with the flak feeling. While he's not going to necessarily destroy it right away, it can do a bit of damage. And Stuart moving up out there. Panzergrenadiers spotting their target. Firing the rocket and sie miss. Dummkopfs. And a tank buster squad now pops out as well. Second Panzerschreck now adding in. Down to one man. Retreat, Mr. Retribution. Retreat. Unit preservation. Unit preservation, I say. Stuart needs to be careful. And there we go. The Panzerschreck was dropped, which I suppose is a minor comfort. But overall, that was perhaps not so well handled right there by Mr. Retribution. He should have retreated right there before he moved it in there. Smaller position down here. A second Stuart out by the looks of it. 11th Armoured really pushing in with some armoured cars. I mean, like tanks. And the armoured car for the Panzer is out, but getting hunted down by the Stuart. We're actually seeing a mine now down for Mr. Retribution right there. And another Stuart takes hits. Mine hit. Immobilized. Stuart. Tank busters could knock it out. The other Panzer has yet to be picked up, which is a bit of a shame. There we go. Stuart down. These Panzergrenadiers need to evacuate, and they go down. Let's just briefly pause. While fighting against the British, never ever wait to the last man to retreat. Stuff like this, of course, recce sections can clear out that man. Of course, Stuarts decently available as well. If you retreat like that, you are very much more likely to end up losing an entire unit than you are with the Americans. So as a rule of thumb, while fighting the British, always retreat if you're down to 3 or 2 men. With a Panzer fleet, always retreat if you're down to 2 men, in particular if they're on their own. Again, unit preservation, and unit preservation versus the British requires that you play a lot more cautious in some ways. Very important. Let's return to the fight. Nice aggressive pushing though by the British player. I mean, we're not really seeing anything that could be described as excessive blobbing, by the way. We've seen good usage of light armor, although he needs to learn to repair it. That Stuart, for example, right there should probably have been pulled back for repairs. This one needs to be pulled back now. Panzerschreck, tank busters, and the Gewehr 43 chaps doing quite nicely. And now they need to retreat again. No, they need to retreat now. This time, yes, they barely make it out of there. Stuart needs to get out of there. All the tank busters might get. There we go, sniper shot. Now again, it's the time to retreat. Down to 1 man. Come on, Mr. Retribution. Learn your lesson. Too late. And there we go, squad down. Panzerschreck still not picked up. He's got more Panzergrenadiers instead of just picking up. He apparently just upgraded. Mortar rounds, so gets a nice hit on the recce section. Scoring a glorious kill for the fatherland. 16 kills already. Really nice work with the mortar half-track. Of course, there was also the mortar half-track for the larger armoured car. I mean, half-track.
We're losing a munition sector.
Not sure what's going on with Flaps. Bit wonky at the moment. Point being taken there. Come on, Frapp, stabilize. Please. Come on, Fraps, be nice. You've been nice the last few days. Very nice indeed. Oh well, Hetzer's now out. Did not fight in Normandy, although, I mean, they were technically up there in the time period, but they were only on the eastern front. There we go. Hetzer Jagdpanzer, although in this case more stand-in for the Sturmgeschütz, I suppose. Mortar rounds going in, and no real defences against it at the base of Madiq. His forward positions are exposed. The Huns are closing in. And only a brave little Stuart to save them all. For King and Country, it charges in. And could get knocked out by a Panzerschreck. Mines by Mr. Retribution, by the way, nice usage of that. Mortar half-tech could be down, that would be an absolutely devastating loss. Full Mr. Retribution, come on, knock it out. A second Stuart also moving out. 2 Stuarts causing havoc in amongst German lines. Heads are moving in, though should be careful, it could get outflanked. Also a fun fact, running about with one squad of panzergrenadiers versus 2 light tanks is not necessarily the best idea if you want your troops to survive. Sappers with Piats now running around. The rather uncomfortable anti-tank weapon. Apparently left a lot of bruised shoulders amongst other things. Still not picked up the panzer. I mean, what in the world is going on for Mr. Retribution? Who's, by the way, suffered considerable infantry losses. Stewards that are charging into the base. Panzergrenadiers trying to survive all this, and exposing the rear to flak feelings tends to be not a very good idea. They can actually knock it out that way if you're not careful. There we go. Stewart light tank is out of control. Another blow to the... Let's just get this fight over with. Looks like another Stewart to go down any minute now. No armored command truck on the way. Recapping this after losing it, and there we go, destroyed engine, and there we go. But the 10th SS having returned with the 9th SS from the Eastern Front, having been taking part in the attempt to stop partly the Soviet invasion and also save some beleaguered troops in a place called Tarnopol, somewhere on the Eastern Front. Sadly, they were not quite able to save as many as they would like to, and they were then returned just in time for the Normandy fighting, but without having fully replaced some of their armoured losses, amongst other things. And in fact, the 10th SS never received its Panther battalion in time for Normandy. Only the 9th SS Panzer Division actually got any, and they didn't actually get to the Eastern Front. They were still in Normandy because the 9th and 10th SS Panzer Divisions had been forming in Normandy in the first place, but then were shifted over there and then back again. So little fun stories there. So, exposing themselves to the mighty Hetzer. Schwimmwagen needs to move! Move, Schwimmwagen, move! Armoured coming out, and a 17-pounder gun up, getting the Schwimmwagen. Heroic use of such a large anti-tank gun, as you can note. Not really the sort of anti-tank gun you, by the way, move about on with just men. In fact, it needed some sort of tractor, otherwise vehicle, to move it about. It was simply too big to be manhandled by infantry in any sort of sensible manner. Small infantry assault going up on the right flank without, well, just a mortar half-tack. Lots of Panzerschrecks finally picking it up. Good job there, Mr. Theretribution. Or should I call you Hans? Troops getting slowed down. Sap, 17-pounder gun firing again. Even getting someone, I think. Lucky shot there. Going in for the assault, perhaps trying to get the counter-clean station. Lieutenant hiding in the trench for protection against Hun rounds. Heads are staying there. This Panzergrenadier squad needs to retreat, in particular since it's actually a veteran squad. Come on, Mr. Retribution. Unit not Retribution, but oh, now I can't even remember the name. Thanks, Heinz. Preservation, there we go. This Panzergrenadier squad also needs to consider being a bit... Panzergrenadiers as well getting murdered. They need to be careful with the cover. Down to one man. Come on, Mr. Retribution. Preserve. Save your men. Come on. Mortar rounds flying in. 18 kills in the mortar half-track. Doing well. Doing alright at least. Recce section taking up a nice position in the house. Armour command track now on the way for Madiq and the 11th Armoured. Don't let it fall into the hands of the British, you pigs. Secure it in the name of the fatherland. You can return to the Eastern Front as a recruit. Other things I'd just like to point out, I mean, we do see Madiq94 constantly, you know, being on the ball with the counter-clean station. That is nice, good to be persistent with it, even if he gets knocked out, he can pay off. The only problem as such is he keeps placing it in the line of fire instead of right behind here where it might, you know, be a less obvious target. Also nice to see that Mr. Retribution tries to be aggressive, but his unit retribution preservation, damn you, leaves a bit to be desired. We do see another squad of Panzergrenadiers out. Finally picking up the Panzerschreck. Endlich! Du Klump. Armour car, they're doing what I can. Blasting British troops with auto-cannon rounds. Leaving the house, moving up. Lieutenant veterans who want supporting the sappers on their mission to knock out the crap mortars. And the armour command truck arrives. Jolly good job there. Heads are repaired. Sappers moving in against the Panzergrenadiers. Need to stop taking the point. I would have recommended moving into that. Which it didn't, and there we go. Stable. Sappers opening up on the Panzergrenadiers. Panzergrenadiers pulling back towards the house. Not the best of positions again. Not windows. And again, let's just briefly, in fact, pause for sort of explaining that again. Windows, when it comes to infantry, they matter. When it deals with regular infantry, you want as many windows as possible towards the position you want. If you're dealing with machine guns, light or heavy, though preferably heavy, one window is alright, but otherwise you want more windows. Always more windows. Panzer-X, if your vehicle's alright, one window, but again, more windows is better. Generally, though, always, that is not obviously what's happening here. So that's a bit of a problem right there for Mr. Retribution, and should be rectified, I would argue. Damn it, wrong button. Armor Commander, there we go. Dropping one sapper, sending Jerry, Lewis, and Fred back to base. Bit of sandbags actually going up from Madiq. Interesting, it's... I don't actually ever think I've seen a Brit use sandbags. That's novel. And meanwhile, armor command track is up. We'll of course see what arm up, and we're actually seeing a lot of command points being floated here, which is definitely not good. Panzer players obviously going, and we're seeing full upgrades there with Panzer-X. 2 per squad now. Obviously hoping to knock out the command center, but there's just too many British troops, and again, Mr. Retribution is a bit too slow in retreating. He could lose a squad. Eine Zug could be zerstören. Looks like it made it though, and immediately we see that Madiq begins repairing the headquarters. That is good. Very good. In fact, we're seeing an incendiary round going off in the trench, burning the occupants, turning it into a grill of the most insidious kind. Sappers finding where the mortar half track. The mortar half needs to get out of there. Mortar half track really needs to get away. It's in the line of fire. Armor Cubs running a bit here, spotting the armor command truck. Something is on the way there from Madiq 74 and the 11th Arm. And there we go, opening up on it, hoping to knock it out for the fatherland. Points being secured there. Panzer support command going up for Mr. Retribution. Mortar half track in dire trouble again because Mr. Retribution left a support unit out in its open. He shall pay the penalty and lose his otherwise very veteran command truck. And there we go, Cromwell rolls out. A bit of armour for the Commonwealth. 17-pounder gunfires again. And there we go. Armoured car, very much on the run. Not wanting to face off against the British cruiser tank. Lots of Panzer-X that are ready to meet it now, if necessary. And there we go, lots of Panzer-X being unloaded into the rear of the Cromwell. The Cromwell barely escapes. The Panzer is taking some losses at the same time, though. Madiq makes a slight mistake again. The armor command truck is exposed, which will probably be punished right now, although we do see some British forces being sent in, but not a very strong response from Madiq. Armor command truck now out with a lot of radio arrows, so of course no stag hound right there. Lots of rockets, and we immediately see Madiq begin repairing the armor command truck. Cromwell also moves in. Infantry moves in. Nice, stronger response now from Madiq. That is good. Panzergrenadiers taking hit after hit, and they miss. And now heavy losses going down. He should. There we go. Armor command truck is down. And a full assault right here by the British player. Should be careful with the telemine. But so far, infantry, of course, won't set it off. Hetzer in a bit of trouble getting button now. Getting flanked by the Cromwell. Nice move right there. Of course, with the command tank, of course, increasing the rate of fire of the Cromwell. Very nice that. Very nice. And the Hetzer goes down. Veteranry one for the Cromwell command tank by the looks of it. Oh, the Cromwell moves too far ahead. Straight into a trap of Panzer-Rex und Doom. Come, mighty Panzergrenadiers, destroy it in the name of das Vaterland. I said destroy it, not slightly ding it.
Commonwealth forces are capturing a friendly sector.
British advanced Bren gun is still out in the open. Have to be careful though, there's not so much to stop it now. Another mortar half take out for Mr. Retribution, and then we go out of control Cromwell, but now of course there's a slight skewing of Mr. Retribution's forces. Now he's heavily sort of towards dealing with armor, but not can deal with the infantry. But there we go, nonetheless, a retreat happens for Mr. Retribution. His troops dodging a copious amount of rockets flying through the air. Like something very nasty, the Brits have been pushed back. The 11th Armoured are bleeding, burning, possibly crying as well in their trenches, wishing they had a nice hot cup of tea. And the Lieutenant comes under fire, but he's veteraned too, that's nice. There's not a lot left at the moment for Madiq. Losses have been heavy. So there you go. Cromwell command tank getting repaired up. Armoured command, not armoured command, but armoured. And pushing again towards slight piecemeal falls again as a sort of thing to sort of point out again on any level. You should generally not be sending in troops piecemeal. That is generally means, of course, the opponent can largely, well, annihilate a unit in a second, which just happened here. In fact, handing over a Panzerschreck to his opponent. That is generally within the realm of very bad. Right there, Mr. Retribution considering some mistakes. Sapper unit went down, actually, dropping a Piat. The Panzerschreck still there. Can they secure it? No, there's no free Panzergrenadiers to pick it up. Sappers are crawling in, Lieutenant moving up, securing the Piat. Sappers ever closer to the Panzerschreck, but mortar rounds are going down. Bren guns are being fired at Panzergrenadiers moving up the flank. Lieutenant Jones could go down, but so could the Panzergrenadiers. Down to one man, Mr. Retribution suffering excruciating losses. No, and he lost another squad. Mr. Retribution, you had such a great hold, and now you've just wasted it all. And we actually see an infantry section has been reformed for Madiq. That's definitely good news for him. And there will probably be more as medics pull in the wounded. Of course, only the British wounded. Wouldn't want any Huns to survive, now would we? Another tank buster squad on the way. Seems a bit like Mr. Retribution is ignoring some of the facts. Another armoured command truck is on the field. Slightly more safe now. And there we go, another section reformed. Rather going swiftly now for Madiq. Our Commonwealth friend gaining a lot of momentum all of a sudden. Momentum, I mean. And a Panzerschreck, which is definitely not too bad either. And for now, a bit of quiet with Fraps. Thank the heavens, though how long it lasts, I do not know. Becoming a bit of a pain in the ass, but Retribution is definitely doing less and less well. His forces pretty much bleeding out.
Achtung, the enemy is impacting Kampfgruppe victory points.
Fighting continues. I mean, problem for Mr. Retribution now is he has an absolutely horrible unit composition. The 17-pounder gun still acting as an ice barrier against German armour, the Hun Panzers. But again, the poor unit composition rather means that Mr. Retribution is really setting up in a poor position. And the Panthers will not help with that. And there we go, another Panzergrenadier squad down, lost for all time. Rather unfortunate and atrocious play for now by Mr. Retribution. He had a strong start, and then it just fell apart. And now we're seeing Fireflies joining out under the supervision of a Cromwell command tank. That's pretty bad news. Armoured car barely escapes, and all this Flaps business rather confusing me. Hopefully, though, it will be stable now. Brits advancing. Firefly needs to be a bit closer to the command tank, otherwise it won't benefit from all the benefits of the command tank, which rather involves stuff like increased rate of fire, increased range, in fact. And Fireflies, in fact, gain even bigger bonuses than other British tanks. So I'm really vital in that sense. Awfully close to mine there, though. Schwimmwagen moving out. Very few units left now for Mr. Retribution. I mean, he has suffered horrendously. He's down to one squad, one armoured car, and a Schwimmwagen. Really terrible, to be honest. And again, poor unit preservation, poor tactics. And a poor understanding of, well, you know, force composition. And a Churchill AVRE, and that one makes no sense. There's barely an infantry left for Mr. Retribution, and I mean, there's no real fortification work, so an AVRE is bizarre, to be honest. Hits a mine, even. Veterancy 3 Lieutenant, that's impressive. Mines going down for the British. Madiq actually laying down mines, nice. And the casualty station is still there, but obviously not looking safe for the casualty. Light break, and we're back in the fight. Panzerkampfwagen 5 from the 9th SS supporting, rolling forward. So could have been from perhaps the... And there we go, armor coming about. Churchill in dire trouble. Not really well handled, usually. And actually, time to return to Madiq. You don't see the Churchills used a lot. You don't see Royal Scots Engineers used a lot by the Commonwealth players. It's a bit more clunky, and I really have to wonder what the decision was to get in that one. Fireflies flying, Panzer from the Tommies as well. And of course, one thing to note, Cromwell's really, Cromwell command tanks really, and should not be underestimated. And it's also a bit of a shame there that... And trying again with a brief restart. Having finally just gotten around to that because I bloody forgot about it. Sadly, due to a lack of sleep, due to someone deciding it would be a great idea to have a party in the middle of the Sunday night. Losing me quite some sleep, so I apologise, of course, for all the technical difficulties, and of course for my absolute failure in restarting the computer and getting it beginning all over again. But, well, I don't want to spend any more time on this. I just want it done with now. But again, poor choice in the Churchill AVRE. Really seems like an odd choice. Panthers are out now, and they are getting beaten up by the Firefly with the Cromwell command tank. Sadly, of course, after the, let's just call it the cancer that is the Stag Hound, a lot of players have pretty much neglected it, and us also neglected rather something which is a vast advantage to the Fireflies. Again, it increases the rate of fire, but also the range, meaning a Firefly with, for example, a Cromwell command tank or even a Veterancy 2 Cromwell command tank is considerably more powerful than a regular Firefly with nothing else, which rather gives it an advantage against most German armor. That is, well, fantastic. And now we do see a bit of a return here for Mr. Madiq with his Firefly. Of course, interesting thing. Oh dear, bit of problem still, but not as bad as it was. Infantry section going for the victory points, though under 5 from the Panthers. The Panthers, though, again, perhaps not the best choice considering everything. Again, there's also still a lot of infantry. Churchill AVRE still trying at something. Panther needs to pull back, much farther back, in fact. Come on, Mr. Retribution. Redeem yourself in den Armes des Vaterlandes. And now the Bergetiger is under fire. And again, he can just see, and again, the Firefly has incredible range with a command tank. Of course, again, keep the command tank close to your tanks, otherwise your command tank is a moving piece of junk. Panzer is moving in with a Panzerschrecks, a Kitten Panzerbuchse. Brits moving forward with a Bren guns, an excellent Czechoslovakian machine gun, in fact. Cromwell command tank pushed away, Panzer's retreating. Panthers in dire need of repairs. More sappers out. No more Fireflies, that would have figured. And there you go, the Panther getting repaired, the Panzerkampfwagen 5. Panzer command under fire from the 17-pounder gun mounted on the Firefly. But the thing is, for a Cromwell unit, you wouldn't actually see a Firefly as such. You'd see the, well, Cromwell variant of it, which was actually a enlarged Cromwell, but basically it was called the Challenger A30. It really looked clunky and not really spiffy, but it existed. Panther, pull it back. Why are you doing this, Mr. Retribution? Why are you doing this? Warum? Du Dummkopf. Pull it back. Rückzug. Pull back. Panzers, though, managed to actually push it back, but again, the Bren guns are lethal. Again, when it comes to light machine guns, moving about out in the open or negative cover is suicidal. In particular, since they start out with 2 light machine guns. Though, again, an LMG-42 actually has about the same rate of fire as 2 Bren guns, so there's that to consider. Repairing the Panthers again. And again, the Firefly really gets a boost from the Cromwell command tank. Second Firefly on the way. And Mr. Retribution has pretty much cornered himself, or painted himself into a corner, if you will. Repairing his Panthers. Hoping for something to save him. More to half-track out. And there we go, Panther under fire again. Panzer is advancing, Panther still there. Panther needs to pull back. Come on, Mr. Retribution. And a Panther. Oh, the aviary actually did something. He fired a spigot round and pretty much knocked it out. That is nasty, and it actually fired quite an explosive round, as opposed in some ways you can consider it something like a Sturm Panzer. Basically, it was, you know, lots of explosives to clear out strong points. Fireflies are evil today. Well, Fireflies with a command tank are vicious. I repeat, vicious. And again, don't move infantry about in front of armor. That's not really a great idea either. And there goes second Firefly joining. And weird thing though about Cromwell command tanks, Veterancy 2 is the only real Veterancy you want. Veterancy 1 and 3 do bollocks actually. But even then, I mean, Veterancy 2, when it hits, does a lot. Now we're seeing the Panthers rolling forwards, and again the Fireflies. No! Now here Madiq actually makes a mistake. He's actually moving in the Firefly. He should again keep it at range. The Fireflies are excellent range armor. Again, they should never be rolled up. They should be kept at range with the command tank, and they will devastate Hun tanks. They will make a wreck of his panzers, and make a wreck of the Panzer commander as well. And sadly, again, it's something that has been forgotten in the wake of the plague of the Staghounds. There we go, one Firefly down. A Panther down, and there we go, Veterancy 2, in fact, making the Fireflies even more lethal. But here's, oh! And here Madiq makes a blunder of proportions. Never mind, I was seeing a Yak Panther out, but he's actually moving the command tank ahead of the tank, so it actually doesn't convey the bonuses to them. I mean, that's absolutely daft. Yak Panther with its sloped 80mm armor. And much more simpler structure, which actually makes them more sturdy in that way. Taking on the Fireflies, and again, there's no support for it. The command tank's not well, otherwise the Fireflies could easily have beaten it. Panzer still moving in, no support for the Yak Panther. Yak Panther already down to half health. Absolutely devastating. Mr. Retribution has brought retribution upon his own forces. His Panthers are ablaze. His men are dead. His headsers burned. And his Yak Panther in dire need of some repairs. Really nice, you know, sort of look of it. Yak Panther actually mostly fought on the Western Front. It was only in the last few months that the Yak Panther actually saw service on the Eastern Front. Something you don't actually hear much about, but it actually did. So, fun little fact there, for those that did not know. On the Eastern Front, you would more likely see the Nashorn, or the Elephant, or... well, basically that's it. Yak Panzers as well, and headsers. Again, headsers saw service much sooner on the Eastern Front than the Western. Panther getting repaired. And the Bagger Tiger goes down. Of course, the Bagger Tiger did not exist. And a third Firefly. My goodness, I mean, this is pretty much game over. GG. Mortar rounds going in. Troops coming out in the open again in front of all the nasty British infantry. Panzergrenadiers charging in. Yak Panther following up. No real support. Another shot from the aviary. And again, I mean, this is just weird. He has absolutely separated the command tank, thus losing the advantage, of course, it gives to his tanks. Which is just, well, bizarre. It's, of course, something to consider there. Panzergrenadiers on the retreat. Mr. Retribution considering how he shall excuse his behavior to the superiors, perhaps at this stage. But my panzers, they were all made of paper? I don't know. And there we go, using the hedgerows to fire over the cover. Nicely done there. Fireflies getting repaired. And of course, with the command tank, you could pretty much move in and level the entire place, in particular with a rate of fire, which again, with the Veterancy 2 command tank, is going to be the stuff of nightmares for any German commander. be they Panzerlead or Wehrmacht. Looks like someone snuck into the base, isn't that right, Jimmy? Yes, and now I'm running. Trench through there. Bit of a nasty beginning and mid-game for Madiq, but some considerable blunders in unit sort of composition for Retribution rather allowed Madiq to come back with a vengeance. And another infantry section reformed, meaning this casualty station has definitely paid itself off. 3 Fireflies. And again, no command tank within radius. Absolutely a blunder there. And the other Fireflies not even within radius of that. Panzergrenadiers advancing. No anti-infantry weapons. No assault rifles. There we go, actually. About damn time. Focus on the Brits with the Tommies. Meet their Panzerschreck. And AVRE, well, pretty much vaporizes a few of those. Another squad down. Yak Panther pulls back in shame, having not even killed a single Tommy. And morale is dropping as they hit 100 points. Absolutely disastrous. Very close earlier. True. Needed to kill you early, well played. That's Brits for you. Yes. You do need to sort of keep the pressure on them, but that doesn't mean you can't beat them in late game if you know what you're doing. But here, I mean, the main problem for Mr. Retribution was he absolutely went too hard against the anti-tank. He lacked perhaps some panzer force to deal with the infantry, but he lacked some more sort of sturdy infantry. He lacked some unit preservation. There were a lot of times where units were sent in piecemeal and killed without reason. Very bad there. Madiq, on the other hand, perhaps should have structured his sort of forward positions better. These should have been a bit further back in the first place. He should have prepared himself well for something a bit more aggressive for the Panzerlead player, but the Panzerlead player, of course, should have prepared for armor. He really made those some rather cataclysmic mistakes in that sense. Still fought alright. The mortar half-tack was a great move, but again, I mean, so many other things just didn't work out for him. And again, keep the command tank near the Fireflies, so that way they absolutely shine. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed this match. Hope you learned something from it. If you did, why not subscribe to your friends? And if you didn't, well, why not send a replay or provide some feedback in the comments? Of course, would you have done the same thing as these commanders? Would you have done differently? Was there something you actually thought that you thought was clever? Who knows? So, you know, fire off that. But as well, you know, I'm also curious, is there something specific you want me to focus on for the next Monday Novice fight? Some particular strategy, some particular army? That sort of thing, you know. Let me know and I'll sort of try and work that out. This is Imperial Dane saying cheers and apologies for the technical difficulties. My sincerest apologies. Cheers.